Hi guys, my name is Christina and welcome to my channel and welcome to yet another episode of the podcast. And if you watched the last episode of the podcast, I kind of gave you a warning that we're gonna get savage in this podcast. We're gonna talk about real deal and more over controversial topics, and I'm gonna touch upon a lot of different subjects that are around creation, writing, drawing, and like just overall. And because writing is about people, and I feel like there's a lot of controversial points that leading into that. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, you might want to check out the previous video of the podcast or episode of the podcast. This is where I'm describing and talking about controversial points overall. But in today's video, I wanted to talk about the topic that almost single-handedly provoked me to kind of switch the focus of my podcast from just talking about what I'm drawing to talking about subjects that make me wanna just get vocal. Let's just say that. And one of the topics that I want to cover today is this very widely spread idea, not like idea, like people just keep saying that, and I see a lot of videos from people saying that, and that is about the fact that if you want to be a good writer, you have to read a lot. And okay, before I get into this, I actually got the idea for this video from two videos of the author tubers. One is being Alexa Dunn, and she took the idea from Kate Kavanagh. I'm gonna add the links to those people down below. I watched both of them. I enjoyed their videos. Though to be fair, I feel like Alexa Dunn, if I knew her in real life, we would be butting heads a lot because just based on what she's talking, we disagree on quite several topics. She clearly has strong opinions about them, and I have strong opinion about these topics, and our opinions tend to be opposite. But I still really like her, and I enjoy watching her videos. Just sometimes I've listened to her videos and I'm like, I feel like pissed that I cannot reply right away. But yeah, so, and basically not only like this subject made me want to talk about this, but Alexa's opinion that, and opinion of a lot of writers, that yes, you do have to read a lot, you have to read a lot of books, and this is like a must, and what type of a writer you are if you don't do that, and you cannot just get away with consuming other type of media. You have to be a voracious reader, and this is very important. I disagree. I really disagree. I think in order for you to be a good writer, you have to read good books. And like, I think being a voracious reader is actually can be a problem. And let me try to explain myself in an organized manner. So first of all, I don't read a lot of books. I read very few books, in fact. And even about talking about media, I consume I don't consume much media at all. I might know about, like, I'm in the loop. I know what's out, I know what's coming out, and I know sometimes even earlier than you guys because I work in the movie industry and I work on some things. But the thing is, I don't have time to watch something like, okay, let me start again. I don't enjoy just watching media. I don't enjoy just reading books. I don't enjoy just getting information into my brain. I don't enjoy just getting stories into my brain. I don't care. I am busy woman. I have a lot of things to do, and one of them being creating my comic and doing my things. And the only time when I'm consuming media, I'm doing it because it is good, so I know whatever I will be consuming is an example of something good, and I'm interested to see what's being done. And another reason is that if this media or whatever the story of this book is different enough from something that I read already, I'm not interested in reading about stories that are like kind of repeat other stories that are on the market. And unfortunately, what I'm noticing is that a lot of media does repeat itself, because media, and I'm telling you like a person who works in movie industry, a lot of it is a repeat because it is a business and they just see whatever sells and they create more of the same thing I mean, obviously not exactly the same, but kind of the same concept, because it is the same bet, not because it is a good story structure, not because it's some sort of like, you know, success and this is how we're supposed to tell stories. No, because it's sold on mass market and because a lot of people were able to understand it, and because this story structure is coherent, available to a lot of readers or viewers, whatnot. And honestly, I like, of course, like every person who is into creative stuff, I love being immersed in the story. I love being inspired by the story. I love being taken on the journey by the book. And this is just unbelievable experience. But unfortunately, it doesn't happen with me with a lot of books. And the moment the book is doing something that some other story did, I don't care. It takes me out of the experience. It makes me feel like I'm wasting my time because I read something similar already. Another thing is that media that, so okay, another thing, it's kind of like talking back to the idea that whatever there is out there, a lot of the time, a lot of things that these are products, you know, this is industry, money are involved. A lot of the time, again, as I said, if it sells, they make more of it. And it doesn't necessarily mean, as I mentioned, that it's just a good thing. It's marketable thing. So if you're interested in doing something marketable, making something sell, that's great. That is important thing for you to investigate, research, and check out on the market. I'm interested in creating a story that is A, true to what I want to tell, and B, is I just want to do something, I don't know, I just want to find my own story. I want to find my own path. I want to do what I want. And I know some writers might be like, well, see, that's the problem, it probably will make a bad story. I don't think so. I'm like, just my personal like personality that I have is that I look what other people are doing, but by default I'm assuming that it's not necessarily the best way. And I understand that there's a little bit of an arrogant approach, and a lot of the times I get in trouble because of that. But at the same time, also plenty amount of times I end up doing something that is different and that is not necessarily worse. I feel like you don't need to have to consume a lot of media, and you don't have to consume a lot of books to learn good tips from the books. Because honestly, you need to read good stories. Obviously, you need examples. If you want to learn, you need to have good examples. But good examples are hard to come by. And I hunt all the good stories all the time. I hunt good books. I keep looking for them. But at the same time, it's hard to find them, you know? And you would assume there are so many videos on YouTube about people recommending books and such. And I will follow the recommendation. I will start reading. And sometimes I'm like, well, this book is kind of like the same thing as this, right? And I'm not particularly interested because I kind of read this. Yes, maybe this book gonna have some cool twist, or maybe something interesting gonna happen. And I hear, like, for example, in review, people say, oh, what happens in the ending so badass. But I'm reading and I'm halfway to the book. I don't care. I'd rather like read a video about spoilers and analyze it from there. See really people reach out book to me, but I don't have time to get there for like one twist or like some idea. No, that's not really it. And to me, it takes like a long time to find a good book. And to me, like, finding a book and I'm enjoying the book is an experience, to be honest. And it's like doesn't happen often at all. And I most often I just start the book. I do first 2 or 3 chapters, and I'm just I either feel like it's not interesting, or I start seeing things that I just don't like. Nothing inspires me. It's like I feel like it's something that I saw before, and I'm not sure. Maybe something is wrong with me here. But for example, I will actually, let's throw some names out and let's angry people. Hopefully not. I hope you guys understand that I'm like, if you enjoy things, it's great. It's just I'm saying it from my opinion and giving you just another opinion that you can add to your opinion list and choose from there. For example, a lot of people, like, for example, Brandon Sanderson, everybody's saying Brandon Sanderson's great. And I started reading The Way of Kings, and I read quite a lot. Like, I probably read a third of the book. Like, it's not like I dropped after the first chapter. And I feel like I've read it all before. All of that. And I'm sure there will be interesting developments further. I'm sure when characters are developed, something interesting will happen. I mean, yeah, something going to be interesting, and there will be value for me. But I read it all before, and if there is something interesting that is coming, it's like you have to read so much of something that doesn't strike me as interesting and new. I don't think if it's worth it for me. I didn't understand why people like it. Another thing, sometimes when people tell me to read classic, I start reading classics. And then I understand, well, I don't really see the point of reading that. Like, I would read, like in school, they would make you read all the classics. I would read it. And then I would think, like, yeah, it makes value if I want to study the literature. And kind of, it's something to do with, like, understanding the history of literature and everything. In this case, yet it is valuable for me. But at the same time, classics is something that happens in the past. People used what writers discovered back then and learned, like, while writing that book, to create more books and build on top of that. Like, I would always read classics and I'm like, oh yeah, I see, like, this was the seed of what eventually became, like, these books that came out more or less recently. So to me, it's just like looking at, you look at some ancient, let's see, like, for example, ancient sculpture, look like old sculptures, and you not necessarily look beautiful to you, but then you see how these sculptures were a base that made, like, other sculptors do better work later on. And yeah, there's definitely a value in that, but there's no value in that for me, who is in the present day, writing the story for the present day. I already got all these tips by reading more contemporary work that already utilizes whatever the classic, like, created as a base. So every time I read classics, and I read quite a lot of classics actually, they made us read a lot in school, and my dad was a person of opinion, if you don't like something, like, if you want to talk about that you don't like something, you have to first read it, right? So he would actually just give me all the classics there is under the sun, and I never understood the value in that, like, ever. I just would consume them and will be just don't see the point. I know, like, what, the more modern writer already wrote something similar, like, based on these classics, but they did more interesting things with that. I'm more interested in that. So that is kind of one of my points. I'd rather read just good books, and also the books that resonates with me, and I always looking for something unusual. I'm always looking for, and unusual to me, it's not like something happens in the plot later on that is different. I want to see, like, to me, if the writer has some more new way of thinking, you will see it right away. It's not necessarily gonna just be some new magic system or some interesting character story. No, it will be in small decisions that the writer makes that tells me that they're not following other people, that they're doing their own thing, and this is what I'm the most interested in. Another thing, consuming a lot of media and a lot of books doesn't really do much if you consume them from the same region. For example, if you read books just from English-speaking world, right? Because it's kind of like the same language, the culture also interconnected, and the way of, like, how stories are told will be very, like, you will see parallels. What I like doing is like looking at the stories everywhere and doing kind of like see storytelling ways. And then I think what is, like, growing up in Russia, what really was, like, could help me with that, because growing up with Russia, I was exposed to Japanese media way more than I was to Western media. And the thing is, it's not like people here who watch anime, right? Because, like, to America, it took a long time to get from Japan to America. It was It was a really pretty interesting journey when there was a lot of censorship and whatnot. In Russia, Japan is really close. We actually share, not that, are we sharing a border? The sea border, the marine border that I guess we're still fighting about. But things come from that area easily. Plus, obviously, there are a lot of Asian cultures and countries nearby, and Russia was conquered by Mongols at some point. There is a lot of Asian culture aspects in Russian culture right now because Russia was under Mongol rulership for some time, actually. So I was more exposed to that way of storytelling, and that I was exposed to American way of storytelling. Like, let's go Western. Let's not just say America, like just Western. And I don't like a Western storytelling is, especially like now that is bleeding into books, what was from the movies, like the movie structure, now it bleeds into the books, and people saying about 3-act structure, all this rising action, the character arcs and whatnot. And like that's still, it's Western stuff. It's not how you do it, it's just how Westerners do it. That what works for Western market, what mass people can understand and follow. You watch some Japanese stuff and they ain't got any of the structure. They just do their own thing. You can force the structure on top, like looking back at it probably, but I'm telling you, Japanese people didn't do it. But their stories sometimes more interesting to me than anything else because their artists just follow their own crazy imaginations. Sometimes they just don't care, and also they don't have a lot of censorship there, by the way. That's another thing. I feel like there's also a lot of censorship in Western cultures because in books, in movies, all of that, like age separation in books, like those marketing things, like this is what teenagers like, that's what middle graders like, that's what like young adults like, that's what like new adults like. New adults like when this female protagonist, there's like, they're still acting like teenagers, but there's a lot of sex in there, so that's exactly what, you know. And you see a lot of books that are like that now. And for middle grade books, for example, Japan mixes and matches. You can have something for middle grade and there's really so much gore and nudity in there. I don't care. I grew up watching that. I'm not messed up, by the way, by these movies. I'm messed up by real life, not by the entertainment. People and kids can handle a lot of things. You will be surprised. And by the way, kids will grow up like in 4 or 5 years, they will be like in real world. So if anything, media can help sometimes. So my perspective might be a little bit different on that. So to me, reading a lot of books is not the answer at all. It's just reading something that can help you in your story. And another thing, like when you read a lot, you adopt the ways things done, and a lot of the times like you learn from things, but it can help. But at the same time, I noticed that potentially it can teach you to forget how to create your own ways of doing things. You don't have to, again, like I'm keep beating this dead horse of the like structures of the plot, because it's something that I'm very lukewarm about. You can't come up with your own structure. You can invent it. I feel like creativity stopped flowing in certain areas. It's like, well, so now the story has bones and you cannot touch those bones. You can touch the meat, or sometimes you can do like a twist with like a bone structure. But no, it's an art. It's a story. You can do whatever the hell you want. Really, you can do whatever. And obviously, I'm not, by the way, actually saying that you should know kind of like the techniques overall. Like I think just getting idea of what our techniques are of writing, getting to know like grammar is good. To me, it's not contradictory to not reading a lot of books. A lot of books, they have the structure, but they don't necessarily have this, like, how to say, like you need to, like if you learn the grammar, you don't need to get a lot of like examples, like tons and tons and tons to see how it's done. Like for example, talking about drawing, because I also draw. Obviously, yeah, I draw. Obviously, I'm drawing right now. You have a footage. So I went through school where I was taught the grammar, how to draw. And then, but it doesn't mean that I'm just going on Pinterest and checking out art of other people. I actually very rarely do that. I rarely go to art Instagram. I don't care. Sometimes I see some artist who does something that like tickles my feelings, and this is what I like and this is what I use for inspiration, but most of the time I don't care. Like I don't go and check how other people's are drawing. I am caring also about what I'm doing with my drawing. I'm thinking of new ways like things can be done. And to me, inspirations and ideas, great ideas of what direction I can go with my further development in drawing come from very, very, very few spaces. There is typically in everything, I think there is not as many people who are innovators, right? And I'm only interested in looking at what innovators are doing, not what other people are repeating while innovators are doing that. Like I just feel like it's a waste of time. So, and yeah, that's basically a couple of my objections. And what I want to see in stories that I'm reading and the books that I'm consuming, I want to see something different that I've never seen before. And obviously, like, there's a degree to that. Obviously, I can never open like books that will be completely different, but I want to see that the writer thought for themselves. They didn't do this plot moment because they thought like, well, that's how the plot works. I want to see they did the plot moment because they thought about it themselves and decided on it themselves and figured out that this is the way. And you can tell when people thought for themselves and just came up with things, and where they unconsciously, not unconsciously, subconsciously, unknowingly, let's say, copied something. So I like watching booktube like a lot. I like people talking about the books, and sometimes I would go to the bookstores and buy the books that people are recommending and raving about. I would read them and I would be like, but wait, it looks like exactly that book from the way before. And I don't understand why people are raving about this. And I don't understand why should you waste my time reading that. And yeah, it's, so I hope I'm explaining myself well with this point, is that I don't agree that consuming a lot of something is going to make you better. I think is consuming good quality something will teach you better. But ultimately, understanding that you don't have to repeat anything you saw, and understanding that you need, the only purpose that you have to have is to make your story, to make your book, like in my case, comic, work. Whatever you want to do with your story, the impact you want your story to have, the feeling that you want your story to evoke, or what you personally just want to do with your story, it should just work. Like, also, your goal shouldn't be also make people feel a certain way or have certain idea. Your purpose with your story can be just to learn something about yourself too. There is no rules on the story. And I feel, because like on the author tube, so it's complicated because there's also self-publishing, there is strat publishing, and there is money involved in that. And obviously, and I did traditional publishing, so I did publish my book traditionally, and it was more commercial. It had more, like, the plot was a little bit different, not like a little bit different, like the beats of the plot were a little bit different. And I'm redoing that right now because I couldn't care. Like, I feel like that version, like, first of all, it was not, like, I didn't like that. I don't think it was great, and I don't feel like it was deep, and didn't feel like I said what I wanted to say. I feel like I was given framework in which to say that, but framework was so invasive to my plot that almost like what the story is telling is, it wasn't what I wanted to say, and I didn't feel like I'm enjoying that. And I think thinking for yourself is important, and learning from others is important, but learn from good things. And I think the most important thing that you need to keep in mind is that you can do whatever the hell you want to do, but just make it work. And you will know if it's working or not by just rereading your story, by watching good stories and feeling how they make you feel, like reading good stories, or realizing what are they doing, and then looking back at your stories. Like, it's easy like that. You will start noticing the difference, you know. It's not like you are oblivious because you don't read quite a lot of things. And I would actually recommend, don't consume media that is mediocre. You can watch, for example, one Avenger movie, realize it's mediocre, and you're like, I didn't feel anything. Why watch 20 others of the same movie? Like, if they're, or like you watch 2 and you realize they're probably all the same. So why do that? Like, I never understand like just dumping media or stories into your head, because you don't want a majority of ideas in your head that like stuff that you consume be bad, like, or mediocre. I want to only put something that is valuable and good and tickle my brains. Usually if I watch media, what I want to happen is I read a little bit and I feel inspired in the way that I have new ideas, new thoughts, and my mind starts racing and starts working, and I start coming up with like new ways of how I can do things, and I'm just like keep thinking about it. The same with media visually. If there's a visually something done, like in the movie or animation, and I'm thinking, whoa, it did something to me. And then I analyze why it did something to me. And then I think how I can do, not like same thing, but how I can, like, it almost gives me ideas what else can be done. And then I can come up with more things that can be done. Sometimes if there's something that I completely don't know how to do, for example, I'm very bad at fight scenes, my brain just doesn't generate them yet, then it makes sense to check out different fight scenes and how they're done or how they're written or whatnot, and get the gist, what's working, what's not. But you don't need to consume all the media for that, you know? Like, I don't know. That's just my opinion about that. I just feel it's a little strange to assume that you have to be a ferocious reader to be a good writer. You don't have to, like, if you want to be a good cook, you don't have to be a mukbanger, you know? You don't have to be the person who just eats everything. You just need to be a person who appreciates good food, good flavors, and just good combination. You need to be picky, I think. So that's my gist about it. This is like my controversial opinion about this. And again, I like, my story is online, it's free, and it's not like, the beginning is definitely not something I'm proud of because I was very young when I wrote it. But at the same time, like, I'm continuing with the story. You can go and check what I'm doing with this and judge for yourself. Is my thoughts in any way valuable? Maybe you look and you're like, that's complete shit, and I'm not going to listen to her, which is fair. But so that's, I just wanted to put my sense in there and have a conversation about this, because I just don't vibe with this thought. So sorry Alexa, I still like your videos. I'm subscribed. I was subscribed before you had, like, before she had maybe 10,000 subs. I think I was subscribed. I'm an OG, but can't agree. But so yeah, thank you so much guys for watching this video and listening to this rant. Let me know your opinions down below. As I said, I want it to be a conversation. I don't want it to be just one-sided thing that I'm talking about. Well, it's not like, I'm still pretty much solid in my opinion. I don't think if you can change it. And if you want me to maybe talk more about the books that I started reading and read maybe a half of them and just not impressed and just dropped them, and it's quite a lot, and there was a sort of major titles in there that people say are genius, but I couldn't care more. But yeah, thank you so much guys for watching. Oh, by the way, I can also talk about the things that I absolutely love. Yeah, let's end with the positivity. Yeah, I can talk about this. Let me know in the comments down below. So other than this, thank you so much guys for watching, and I hope to see you in my next one. Thank you so much guys. Bye.